where we had to look at why were we so inefficient, ineffective on doing things in finance. For internal stakeholders, typically because finance doesn't interact very much for external, but and mostly in the corporate side that I was managing, the whole receivable, payables, invoices was automated with the solution at the time was just to outsource it to India or wherever. So that was automated by design with outsourcing, but all the internal process which stayed in the companies were typically a mess. Inputs wrong, things redone. So I started applying value stream mapping, lean processes and lean techniques to internal processes. And that seemed to work for a long time. I still do it in every company that I go to, but very limited. So there is a small problem of a process that doesn't work, typically for the people in finance. And we think how to fix it. We never, and then I learned about design sprints and I started thinking about it, about designing the whole concept, and I will fix it. And then I figure out why we never consider corporate culture as a process, because everybody talks about, and I see similar things happening in, I see a lot of, sorry, oops, my daughter stuck herself with tape and I had to remove it. So one of the things, so I was working on that and kind of like optimizing the process on the spot, never thinking about stakeholders. And people, and then the corporate culture became a big topic and everybody was thinking about engagement and how do we improve the engagement of the employee? How can we make people happier? And somehow it was always like, give them a salary raise, hire more women so that they don't complain or whatever. And what I realized is that in the team where I was working in the last 2 years, by optimizing processes and taking away people's frustration, the engagement went from 40% to 89%, which is the highest engagement every team ever got in that company. And that sparked the idea of, why don't we use design sprint to first understand what the user needs in terms of what is the biggest issue for the company culture and engagement, narrow down the problem, work on it as a design, as if we are thinking about a product, which is an improved corporate process with the objective to improve corporate culture, but starting from the user point of view and not just what an executive wants, which is a little bit what I was trying to do with the team when I went around and asked 30 people via, how do you say, questionnaire, what's your problem? Like, yeah. Can we expand on this? And so that's why I wrote down the idea, because it would be great if it becomes more systematic and adopted.
Okay. Does anyone on the call have any questions for Valentina based on how she described the idea that she had? And if you don't, that's okay. We can jump right into the LDJ if that's the case.
I just wanted to comment. I'm involved also with a group called Hacking HR, which is a global movement that I don't think it's a few thousand people anyway at this point, that are looking to bring together the intersection of tech, collaboration, and HR. So I think that so my interest in process and collaborative work, changing cultures, I can't recall who said it, but right on. And I think that group might be very interested in the output of this decision jam and wherever it goes, if you know, as a sprint as well. So bringing that forward to even a broader body of individuals who are working in HR on those kinds of challenges.
Great. Yeah, I know that group. I follow them on LinkedIn. They have some really cool idea. Really good.
Okay, let's jump right into it so we can maximize our available time for the rest of the session. I'll be your facilitator and I'll be going over each particular section in a certain fashion. So I'll give you some instruction and let you go at it. We'll try to make the best use of our time. We typically run anywhere from 45 to 50 minutes, but we'll run from each section. If you do have questions, I would encourage you to kind of put those in the chat in Zoom. They tend to be the area where I look at during the times that we're kind of going through things. If you're completely stuck and you just want to use audio and say, I can't see something or something doesn't work, then feel free to do that, and I'll try to address it as soon as I can. So this first part, and I'll be kind of bringing everybody to view what I'm viewing in my viewfinder here, so that you can kind of see the same thing that I'm gonna start with. So when we talk about internal processes in relation to what Valentina has written in her idea, we want to start with this exercise of things that are currently working, that are forward thinking, that either you are experiencing in your own corporate culture, something where you can point to and say that this is an example of something that seems to work very well for your situation, or just with corporate internal process. When you want to do this, all you have to do is just double click on any one of these gray cards to write something in there. And you could say something like recycling is everywhere and gets taken care of quickly. Just as that's one possibility. But you do it from your own point of view and your own experience. This is to get you started with working with Mural if you've never done it before. Don't worry about moving things around or breaking anything. You really can't do it in this environment. We'll take 2 minutes, and I'll put a timer at the very top to kind of get you oriented to time boxing within Mural. And go at it. There are no right or wrong answers with this. So go ahead and give it a shot. Just double click on any particular sticky in the area that says things that are working, and think about your own internal corporate culture and your internal process, and kind of write out or type out what you feel is working very well. And what you might find is that I'll tend to mute particular microphones if I start hearing some backfeed on hitting the keyboards, just so that it tends to be less distracting for other people that are on the call. Okay? And like I said, just hit me up in chat if you got any questions or any concerns. We have about 30 seconds left. Okay, if you are still typing on a digital card, go ahead and wrap that up. When you are done typing, make sure you click anywhere outside of the gray box to deselect it. And that's something you'll need to remember as we move forward into these other activities that we'll be doing. So for those that are finished, I'm going to move you over to the capture all the problems section. So this is going to be pretty much the opposite of what you did when you were thinking about all the things that are working. You're going to start capturing the things that are not working when it comes to internal process, things that are inefficient, that are just problematic, especially in corporate environment. Go ahead and start putting those down. Again, I'll give you about 2 minutes. If you need extra time, then just go ahead and verbally say, like, can you add 1 more minute? And I'll be more than happy to do that. Same dynamic, you just double click on a gray card here and write out something that does not work in terms of internal process. And by the way, Valentina, if I need to be specific about particular instruction with this, just let me know. But I'm just trying to follow what was originally in the idea and kind of following with that theme. So go at it. You have 2 minutes. Just double click on any card and think about internal processes that are either not working too well, are problematic, are broken, and kind of put all those in this space. We have about 30 seconds left. Does anyone need more time? If you are working on a digital card, go ahead and type out your thought and wrap it up by clicking elsewhere outside of the gray box. So that's deselected. And we'll move on to the next section. So you'll have to give me about 30 seconds for kind of getting everything ready. So I'm be moving all of these stickies over here to the spot to our right. And make sure I grab the ones down here and give them a home as well. 3 more. Bring that over here. And let's go ahead and grid these out. Okay. So for this particular section, the next one to the right is we're taking all the problems that we just worked out and we're going to do some affinity diagramming. Now, if you're not familiar with how this works, is that you're going to look at the cards here, what people have written, and you're going to do one of two things. If you see two that are absolutely similar in terms of what they are, you can feel free to move over that card over to the far right. If you sense that two of these cards, and I'm just going to take like any two cards, they don't have a match. But I'm going to go ahead and put those underneath one of these groups here. Let's say these two are connected, or at least they have the same common theme or category. You're going to go up here and type in a category name that kind of put that these two would fall under. And you would do this exact same thing with all the other cards in this particular space. So as you see 2 or 3 or 4 of these gray cards that would fit a certain category, go ahead and double click on one of these gold cards up here and put that category in place and put all the cards underneath that. This is a group exercise so that you can all work in different times. You can work at the same time. There is no time frame for this. So whenever the categorization is done, we'll just move to a round of voting. If you have any questions about this process, please let me know. And if it does help, we have a small little section here for temporary space for obstacles and problem cards. So all you have to do is just basically take some of the ones that you know aren't in the sections or are being shuffled around. You can put those there as a visual separator between the top and the bottom. Looks like we're getting pretty close. And one thing I should mention is don't feel pressured that something has to go in a category. If it just doesn't make sense, then you don't need to put it there. You can actually keep orphan cards down below in this blue spot down here. So if they don't fit anywhere, you can put them just in where it says temporary space for obstacles and problem cards and put them by themselves, maybe, yeah, just kind of isolate them away from the other cards that are structured. One thing to note, if something for processes, if it looks like it's getting fairly long, one thing to note is that it could be because it's combining the topic of processes, but there could be like one that's slightly different, that it could be like broken down into more than just a long list. But if it looks like all of them are just basically speaking about process, then you're good to go. It's a judgment call. So you don't, it's not a bad thing that something's really long. It just means that everyone kind of commented on process. Okay, so take about 10 more seconds to kind of do some last minute kind of moves wherever you want to put things. And then we're going to go into a round of voting and I'll explain how we're going to go about doing that. Oh, and here's a little trick for an anonymous bee. I know you're moving things around. You can basically highlight a whole bunch of different cards and there'll be a sub menu that comes up. Just put a range and then in a column and Mural will automatically do that for you. Okay, so now it looks like we kind of settled on some basically some categories and some cards that fall underneath those. What we're going to be doing now is going through a voting process. Now within Mural, it's going to be something where it's going to be all controlled within the interface. You will be voting on the most intriguing problems you see here, but you won't be voting on any of the categories. So you want to leave the categories completely out. So when I start the voting process, typically I'll do a subset based on how many people are here and how many cards we have. I think it's a good, at least from the cards that I see and how many people we have, 5 cards should be enough, or sorry, 5 votes. So I'm gonna give everyone on the call 5 votes to basically select particular cards that they want to move forward with in terms of the most intriguing problem they see in relation to internal processes and corporate culture. So let me start with really fast. Okay. So actually, I'll make it 6. Everyone gets 6 votes. You can place those votes anywhere you like on the board. Just don't vote for the categories. You can vote for a particular card more than once. You can shift click to remove a vote if you change your mind. And no one will know who's voting for what because your arrows and your votes will be anonymous. So you can vote for anything except for the categories. You can also vote for the orphan, or even, I would not vote for the duplicates that are underneath the blue on the far right on the blue. So basically, don't vote for anything in that particular column either. Just everything that's in the center there under the 8 columns with the gold categories, but just on the gray cards themselves. So Kim and the squid are already done. B's about to finish. We're about halfway there, it looks like. I will not be voting, and neither will Sandy. It looks like at least that's what the notion is. In fact, Sandy left, so she's definitely not voting. We have a few votes left. Ian and Daniel are about to finish. Raccoon's just about finished as well, so is the ladybug. And here we go. We're done. Okay, so I'm going to end the voting session. We're going to see how the votes kind of turned out, and then we can take it from there. So it looks like we have 3 particular cards that have 5 votes and 5 unique votes, with the exception of the third with 4 unique voters. Internal processes are not thought through. Communication within groups or teams varies wildly, and resistance at some organizations for remote work. Okay, so we got these 3. I think we can move forward into kind of the next step of this. So I'm going to go ahead and take those 3 that had 5 votes, and I'm going to go down here, and I'll call everyone to where I'm looking at in just a second. But you're going to be heading in vertically down to an area just below where we were working on, and this is arranging things in order of priority. So basically what this meant to do is to kind of take all 3 of these that we voted that were very close and see which of these are more important to the group than others, if you were to put them on a scale of high importance versus low importance. So we're going to start out with this first one, with communication within groups or teams varies wildly. Now the way to do this is you're going to take your mouse cursor that you have in Mural, and you're basically going to move it in a small circle somewhere on the line of importance, whether it's high or low on where you think this card should go. So in terms of communication within groups or teams varies wildly in terms of a problem, how do you feel this ranks in terms of importance? So I'm seeing the arrows, and it looks like the majority of them seem to be somewhere over here, with the raccoon being on the far end, but this seems to be where it's going to live. So next up is internal processes are not thought through. Now, in terms of how it relates to this one, is it more here or less here? And it looks like the majority raccoons on the opposite end. The majority of people are saying it's kind of right there. Finally, with resistance at some organizations for remote work, where does this stand in terms of these 2 and the importance as a whole? Looks like it's kind of across the board, but there's some raccoons on one side, Daniel's on the other. I think it's kind of right in the middle. So for the purposes of this LDJ, we're going to go into internal processes are not thought through as the card that we're going to move forward into the next, into the next part. If I can get my keyboard shortcuts right and not eliminate the card altogether. So give me 1 second. I'm going to move down to the lower left. And I'll go ahead and take this, put it into the top problem. Right, so the next step in this is to recast what we just did for a problem, and we identified that, and we're going to put it into a challenge. Now you do this through a process in this LDJ called How Might We? If you've never done this before, it's going to seem a little strange or a little foreign to you. But essentially what you're doing is you're not jumping to solutions right away when you're thinking of this problem. Because when you read this, you could say, oh, well, here's an easy way to going about it, or I think we could do it this way. Instead, you're going to speculate on what the solution could be. So you do that through a How Might We statement. The easy way to do it, or the way, as an example, is so you double click on one of the cards like we did before, and you go, okay, internal processes are not thought through. One potential How Might We goes, how might we have involved discussions on outcomes for a particular process, right? It's somewhat exacting, but it's more about just posing the question. If you want it even more general, you could do something like, how might we explore say standards good standards for existing processes. Right. So it doesn't really say like we should go explore things or go after this particular process and copy it. It just basically poses the question. So that's kind of how to do a how might we. It's just thinking in speculative terms, thinking of possibilities, but not necessarily jumping to conclusions right away. So we're going to try out this exercise. We'll give you 2 minutes to do it. This is typically an exercise that needs a little bit more time. I'm only time boxing this for the purposes of trying to get through some of these other exercises, but if you do need more time, do let me know. And if you feel like this is a little going out of your element, then it's totally understandable. Just give it a shot, see what comes up, and there are no right or wrong answers with this. Just see where your how might we statement comes out, and we'll see where everybody lands. And just for sorting purposes, if you could, try to use the how might we cards at the top rather than the bottom, unless you need that kind of space to have, if you need like that separation from activity to kind of calm your mind and think about things. It's totally fine either way. Forget what I said, I guess, is what I'm saying. We have 30 seconds left. Does anyone need more time? Squid, raccoon, bee. Almost like call people by like their animal names. It's interesting. Mr. Bee, Mr. Ladybug, or Miss Squid. Go ahead and wrap up whatever digital card you are currently typing out. Once you're done, go ahead and click anywhere outside of the gray card you are working on to deselect it. And then we will go ahead and start with organization. So I'm going to do a little bit of an audible here. So hang tight just for a second. I'm going to take the cards that we did just before and bring them down here. And instead of doing all of this, let's knock this out. I see you putting more cards out there. What are you doing? Right. So similar to what we had just done in the previous section with affinity diagramming, we're about to do another one. So I'm going to drag the cards that were just done here. Actually, instead of dragging, let's do this differently. Let's copy them so that we keep this state of what we had previously and put them down here. And same with this up here. Let's go ahead and copy and Z paste. And there's 3 outliers here. Copy those, I'll bring them over, and let's organize them into a nice little grid. And there we go. Let's bring this up so that's not kind of encroaching down on the lessons that are down here. Okay, so same thing as before. Affinity diagramming will take a little bit to do this. Figure out a category that some of these gray boxes go into, and then we'll organize those cards based on those categories.
Hey, Robert, real quick, what's driving the audible? What's kind of your thinking or thought process around that?
Audible?
Yeah, doing the affinity.
Oh, just because we had some feedback in some previous sessions that we were voting on duplicates when we did the voting.
Gotcha.
So I'm doing more of I'm advocating more for organizing thoughts around the cards and doing it that way. it just seems to kind of help people frame the each of their options in a much more meaningful way.
Excellent. Thanks.
No problem. Plus, it gives people a chance to digest the cards too, because if you don't have a chance to digest them before you vote, then you may be kind of voting on something and you're not sure about it. So again, you're going to take the gray cards that are down here and just kind of grab a couple of them that may fall into a particular group and go ahead and double click on a group name. Again, if one person may have a different view than another, but again, when you have everyone kind of working in the same space, that tends to happen. But again, just kind of work it out, see how might we fall into what categories, and when we seem to kind of fall into a happy medium with the organization, we'll go into a little bit of voting for the how might we's. We're doing very good on time. Okay, looks like they're fairly well organized. Well, how should I say it? They're very well organized. I'm discounting the fact that we have such great people on this call. I wouldn't want to give off the wrong impression. Okay, so again, like last time, we're going to do a little bit of voting here. What you're going to do is vote for the how might we that seems to be the most interesting or compelling to move forward into the next step. And you'll want to keep in mind the original problem we were talking about, which is internal processes are not thought through. Out of all of these gray how might we's that you're seeing here, which ones are ones that look really interesting to you? We're going to go into, since we only have about 20 or so cards, I think I'm going to break it down to 4 votes each. So you'll have 4 votes to kind of have with each of these. So which how might we's are the most compelling to explore will be the question. 4 solutions. I'll make it 5. Why not? Let's have some fun. So 5 votes for everyone. You want to click on a card to vote on it, shift click to remove your vote, and we'll see how everything stacks out. And do not vote on the categories. Categories don't represent like a particular direction that you can go in. So it looks like the squid was the first person to cross the finish line, with Daniel in close pursuit. Same with the bee. Everyone else is kind of looking over the how might we's and figuring out where things are. For reference, usually I'll give, if there's no movement in the voting and my connection is good, I usually give a 1-minute call to have everyone wrap up their votes so that just in case we have somebody that may have a hanging connection, that we are kind of held hostage as a group by that, since we have more than 10 people on the call, which does tend to happen. Sometimes the connections just drop. So I'll assume that if somebody's staying at 5 votes, it's because either they are away from their desk or that their connection is lost, and kind of run with that.
I lost my connection. I'm back now. Can I still vote?
I think you can. Are you seeing a voting prompt come up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you should still be able to vote.
Okay.
Yeah, if ever you run into a problem where it comes that you can't vote, try refreshing your browser window, and that tends to reset Mural so that you can actually get in there and put in your votes.
I just want to look. It's okay for you, Fatima?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sorry, I couldn't be there before.
That's okay.
Okay,
Take a little time to do so.
thank you.
By the way, Sandy, there's no way we're going to be able to do introductions with the next one. We're topping 30 people that are coming to this. It's going to be
30.
Yeah, 30 people that were invited. I think 2/3 of them approved. So
Okay.
it's going to be.
Do you want to break out the room?
No, I would want to keep everyone in the same space and just work on and kind of allocate more time towards the process itself. I think that this will be a test in terms of like the maximum that this thing can hold, because I don't know if you saw in the survey, there are a lot of people that are signing up for the LDJs next week. So kind of see how that goes.
No, I haven't looked at it yet.
Okay. Okay, so Susanna looks like her mural connection's kind of having some issues. Okay, so we have 6 people at 5 votes. I'm gonna invoke the minute rule, and if there is no movement within the voting in that time, I apologize for that. That's Zoom's fault, and not Zoom's fault. That's Mural kind of failing you, but I'll assume that you're either away or you're having a connection issue. And we have, whoa. Instead of 25 seconds, I made it for 25 hours. No, we're not going to take that long to make a decision. Okay. Oh, we got some movement. Whoa. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, we have 20 more seconds. Put it like this. Susanna's got her connection back. 4 seconds. Those last 2 votes. There we go. Okay. Let's go ahead and close the voting down, see where everybody landed, and we can take it from there. So we have 2 how might we's that had 5 votes and 4 unique votes each. Is how might we use analytics to make decisions, and how might we make the process documentation so useful that people urge to use it daily? So we have 2 here. Let's go ahead and go like this. And we're going to do a very, very quick we're going to use a scale that's in another section, but just to basically vet out the importance between the 2 of those. So I'll guide you back into the thing, but let's go down here where we normally would use this, and I'll summon everyone in just a second. So I wonder, we select all, oh, they are. Oh, very nice. Okay. hang on, hang on. Audible, no. Oh, he didn't copy. Hang on a second. Give me a minute. Sandy, I'm basically taking this this priority matrix and I'm putting it over underneath where we're just working. If you're wondering what I'm doing.
So you want to prioritize to how might we and then prioritize the ideation. Is that what you're trying to get to?
Yeah, because we have two that are tied, and I'd like to kind of I'd like to see where these vet out because I wouldn't want to move two in because ideation would just blow out.
Mm-hmm.
So hang on one second, everybody. I think this is, ooh, where did it go? I think it's good to do just in case there are ties, like what we just experienced. So let me put these back down here and I will summon everyone so that you are looking at me. Okay, really fast. We're going to do a prioritization models. Again, move your mouse and circle it on somewhere on the line where you think this falls in terms of the importance of the how might we. So how might we make process documentation so useful that people urge to use it daily? So in terms of importance, where do you think this falls in terms of high importance or low importance? And it looks like we got a bunch of arrows in this space. A squid, ladybug are kind of here. And raccoon's way out there. So I think it's kind of landing somewhere in the middle right there. How might we use analytics to make decisions in relation to this particular card? Where do you think it falls? Should it fall over onto to the right of it or to the left of it? And people are definitely going all the way over to the left. Okay, so I think we've got our leader here, which is how might we make process documentation so useful that people urge to use it daily. We'll bring that over to this part up here. And paste that there. Okay, so bring everybody around to the ideation part of it. So we're going to ideate without discussions. Now, for reference material at the top here, Sandy's been kind enough to bring in the top problem, which is internal processes were not thought through. And how might we, the relation to that is how might we make process documentation so useful that people urge to use it daily? Now, this is where you kind of go into solutions, but you're going to be thinking of quantity versus quality. You want to produce as many of these as possible. You can be practical, you can be crazy, you can be silly, but you basically want to create as many cards as you can in a 2-minute time frame that would answer the question of how might we make process documentation so useful that people urge to use it daily. You can draw from different industries, different experiences, whatever you like, just saturate the solution space with different ideas. Even if they make you laugh, cry, whatever, just make sure you put some sort of solution in there, practical or impractical, and we'll give 2 minutes for everyone to do this. And again, just to do a solution, you just double click on any card in particular to kind of put in what your thinking is. And remember, quantity over quality. Don't worry so much that you're trying to curate the best solution. It's going to get worked out when it comes to voting later on. I'm going to add 1 more minute just so that I give you a little bit more time to think of some different possibilities. Then you don't feel as rushed if you are feeling rushed, which is not a good feeling. Especially if you're commuting. You never want to feel that way. And Sandy, for the sake of time, I think I'm going to skip the affinity diagramming and go straight into voting. What do you think?
Yeah, for this one, I think. Yeah. But I think we should still do the top 3 cards potential thing.
Yeah, the
Bottom
impact
scale.
interest. Yeah, that's what we're going to close with.
Mm.
But I think I want to make sure that we respect people's time and not bring them over to 11:30 because it's like we have a school bus coming and we got to clear the tables for that. It's big. Finish up your digital card if you are currently writing on one so that we can get to over on the vote again. Okay, time is up. Please finish up what you are currently typing out. And like I mentioned to Sandy while you were kind of working, we are not going to be doing affinity diagramming on this. This is going to be where you get 10 particular votes, and you can go ahead and vote on 10 particular solutions that you really feel are interesting to consider for a virtual design sprint in November. So I'm going to go ahead and start it. So if there's a couple people still kind of writing things out, when the voting session starts, if you're selected, if you have a particular vote card selected, it may not allow you to vote. So I think it's Susanna. If you're still connected to Mural, make sure you click anywhere outside of the card that you're currently selected. There you go. You're good to go. Okay, I'll start the voting process, and everyone's going to get 10. And you're going to be voting on what are, not in all caps, what are the most interesting ideas to move forward with. So 10 votes. Vote on any particular gray box that's in that ideation section. If you want, you can vote for a particular card multiple times. You can remove your votes by shift clicking, but go ahead and vote. And we will take that right into the next, then final activity, which is going to be scoping out where your interest and importance is with these particular solutions. And Daniel is a voting machine because he went through everything and he's got only one vote left. With the ladybug right behind him. In fact, the ladybug I know both these, like, oh, the ladybug won. Daniel was beat by a ladybug, just barely.
Hey, Robert, have you had the problem in Miro? Then you group the stuff, lock it, and then when you unlock it, the group is ungrouped.
No, I have not encountered that. Usually if it stays grouped, and I unlock it, it keeps the group together.
Okay.
I don't recall it kind of like, glitching in that regard.
Mm.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's Brenda from Dubai.
Oh, hello.
How are you?
We're finishing up our previous session. We're about to start.
Oh, sorry then.
No, it's okay. You can hang out. It's fine.
Oopsie.
The next one's going to be ginormous, so this is good.
Okay.
A preview of what to expect.
Sure.
Ian's holding up everybody. Just can't make up his mind. And I think Susanna, I'm going to have to work with Susanna. I'm going to have to work with you offline, I think, with kind of optimizing your equipment over there for Mural. I think I sense there may be a caching issue or something else that's going on. So I will do some technical assistance.
Oh, people are already coming in.
Yeah.
How many people can you hold in the Zoom room?
100 actually is
100.
the limit.
Okay.
So as soon as Ian's done and as soon as he gets his last vote in, we will see how everything vets out. And there you go. we'll end the voting session and let's see what comes out. So we have we have a ton of votes that are for, but what I think I'm going to do is, so it's embed process docs and daily activities so that people want to use it daily, clearly communicate expectations, and wiki with actual photos instead of just text, and use gamification. So I think what I'll do, and I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a curveball, is I'm going to take the top 3 that were listed, actually 4, the 4 ones that are there. I'm going to bring them over to this section here.
Hey, Robert,
Go ahead.
just a quick note, there were several cards that all had to do with gamification.
Okay,
So,
got it.
I don't know if it's fair to lump them together, but that may give you a tiebreaker.
Okay, so let's do that. Instead, well, did I capture the wrong one? I think I did. I took one of the ones that I wasn't supposed to. Hang on. I'm rushing a bit. Let's do the 4s again. And we'll wrap things up. Try one more time. Oh, I'm sorry. The unique votes were kind of going in there. So there it was. Was this one? And let's do these 3, just for the sake of doing it. So gamification, wiki with actual photos instead of just text, and enable documentation to meet the user where they are in their process. So the way this final, this activity works is that we're going to be putting particular colors for each of these. So gamification's in blue, enable documentation to meet the users in gold, and wiki with actual photos instead of just text is in gray. You want to locate some dots that are over here on the right-hand side, and again, I'll bring everybody over here. They basically have name 1, name 2, and so on. You want to put your name in a particular dot. So say if it's Sandy, she would put her name Sandy in one of those dots. You're going to go over to the impact interest matrix here, where on the x-axis, it's the interest that you have with this particular solution versus the y-axis with how much impact you think it would actually have with internal processes and kind of improving those. And you're going to take each of those dots that correspond to those 3 particular solutions or those 3 particular possibilities and put them on the matrix where they make sense to you. So for me, I'm going to take, I'm going to put my name in name 1 for Robert. I'm going to put it right in the center. First, I'm going to say, okay, for gamification, since it's blue, I'm going to go, you know what, for gamification and internal processes, I'm not sure how much of an impact it'll be. Maybe a little, but I'll put it here. This is just me. So I'm kind of corresponding to it. But then for interest, I have a high interest in gamification. So I would bring my dot horizontally over here. So that's where I would fall in terms of this particular solution. Now what you're going to do with for you is the exact same thing. Start in the middle and figure out on the y-axis where you feel that this particular solution would have impact in terms of internal processes, and either on the x-axis in terms of your own interest. And we'll kind of see where things kind of vet from there. And I'll go ahead and remove my card because it's not part of the conversation. And for those of you coming in for the 11:30 session, we're just finishing up for the 10 o'clock, so just hang tight. As soon as we're done there, I will probably have all of you reconnect. I'll have to restart the room and kind of go to a new place. Sandy, normally I would have 15-minute buffers, but I figured I would have a set up time right after when it ended. So no big deal. So if I look at, usually with the first glance to look at this from kind of an informational standpoint visually, is to look at the number of colors that are in the quadrants. And typically after going through this process, there's a lot in the upper right, so that's to be expected, but it's which particular color tends to dominate to kind of give you a feel for which one has the advantage. And it looks like if we're looking at all of them, the gold tends to be, looks like it's the most represented. That's the one is where you enable documentation to meet the user where they are in the process. So kind of a customization of documentation. And then I think second probably is as a tie between the other two choices, with the notion that there's less interest on the gray side with wiki with actual photos instead of just text, whereas blue may have a slightly more interest. So that's a way to kind of read an impact interest matrix in terms of the visuals and where people have kind of vetted out. The next step with this outside of this process is to go back into the teams and associates this solution or this LDJ with particular names. The idea being is that when you eventually meet as a team and you're considering what to do your virtual sprint with in November, each of you will have firsthand experience with these particular ones that you volunteered your time for. And you'll be able to speak with some authority on what was discussed, what your own impressions of it were, and what particular direction you could go in. So this is a way of informing the group based on your own experience. That was kind of the point of doing these LDJs. So like I had said, we are at time. I really do appreciate everyone coming and taking part in this particular session. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you have follow-up questions for me or any feedback from me and Sandy on the templates or the process or doing things differently for next time, we're going to be doing a ton of LGJs next week. We would more than be, both of us, I think we're more than happy to get that feedback for you. You can give it to us in email and Slack, whatever's more convenient. Until then, I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. I really appreciate the perspective. Thanks again for being part of this, and hope you get a chance to either enjoy the food or the vacation spots you put in at the beginning of the session.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Great
Bye-bye.
job. Thanks.
And for those that are coming in, I'm going to reset everything. You'll have
Thank
to rejoin, but we'll see you soon, okay? Adios.